Hey, what's happening, you guys? Thank you so much for joining the podcast today. The reason I'm saying podcast is because I'm in a legal battle about Icon. There's somebody else in Utah that has been using that name for a much longer time than I have. And so I can't use that name, the name that I can't use. So it's a podcast, which is great because that's what we're doing anyways. We're doing a podcast. And today we're doing a special podcast because we have a special guest. That special guest is Mark England. And we're going to talk about the power of language. So let me talk a little bit about Mark England. I'm going to bring him on and we're going to dive right into this. Mark is a life coach, a public speaker, and a language expert who has helped thousands of people around the world change their lives by changing their words. He's been featured on or featured speaker at TEDx, is the founder of Vocabulary, and is a master in Muay Thai with a mean tat. I want you to welcome to the show, Mark. Mark, what's happening?
Hey, what's man? Quite the intro.
I don't know if I said that right. Tat. I had to look that up. Muay Thai roundhouse kick.
Yeah, I'll take it. I was on the Middle-Aged Man podcast yesterday, and once we got booked for that, I was like, yeah, I am a middle-aged guy. I'm 45 years old, and I can still throw high kicks.
That's actually what I want to lead into. I want to lead into because you have such an intriguing story of how you got into doing what you're doing, and that is starting off with Muay Thai and actually leaving the United States to go chase your dream of being a professional Muay Thai fighter. And then something happened which led you to what you're doing right now. Can you let us know how you went from Muay Thai fighter to where you are now?
A couple of knee surgeries helped out on that.
Boom.
Uh-huh. Wow. Yeah, I moved to Thailand in 2002. And I wanted to be a tough guy from, freshman year of high school. So I joined the wrestling team, and then I got into jiu-jitsu in college. And the people that we were training with were, we were doing stand-up too, and everything got competitive, and there was a number of our team members that were getting pro fights, and I'm like, I want to be a pro fighter, and I decided to take a little road trip. Following that dream, I moved to Thailand when I was 26 years old in 2002. And the plan was to stay over there for a year, Joel, and then come back and start judo chopping people's faces professionally. And that's so not what happened. Like I said, I had my second knee surgery 6 months over there. And, dude, boy, did I take that tough, because that fail, as I saw it then, was all the proof that I will ever need. I used it as evidence that there was something wrong with me. And here's now the definitive proof that I'm not good enough, and that I was going to fail from the start. I was doomed to fail. And that story took up the entirety of my mental real estate. So much so that I did not laugh for an entire year. I was bitter. And that shows up on people's faces, by the way. I believe we were talking about this in class yesterday. Yep. It's not a good look. Turns out, not a good look. And after a year of being a victim of circumstance and just blaming God, I was such a blame thrower. I blamed the people I was training with over there in Thailand, anything I could find other than myself was the reason for my suffering. And that is a hellish way to live, turns out. Anyway, I accurately identified that, hey, dude, and it took me about a year to get there. Dude, are you going to be a 55-year-old man still complaining about this? I looked at that, and it was an option. It was a potential outcome. I said, that really would make me a loser. I really would be a loser then. Like, the jury's still out now. I'm young. This is a true story. And I ended up staying over in Thailand for 10 years. I was an elementary sports teacher at an international school in Thailand. And lo and behold, right around that same time where I was like, man, I got to do something different. Because it's rocket science, folks. This formula is total rocket science. Do something different, get something different. Rocket science, huh?
Rocket.
And right around the time where I was like, my God, I got to do something different. My vice principal came back from this island in the Gulf of Thailand, and he had just done this 3-day cleanse from this place called the Spa that does their main cleanse is 7 days, and you go down there and you pay to not eat, and it's a real pattern interrupt. It's a word we use a lot in this work. It interrupts the whole process of you being you. You're not eating. You're around about a bunch of weird people on the beach talking about a bunch of weird shit, and you leave feeling a little bit different. I did. I left feeling a little bit different, a little bit better. But and I kept going down there, man. I had 3 months paid vacation, 4 months paid vacation every year. And I kept going down there, dude. And the third time that I went down, there was a man by the name of Barry Musgrave who was doing a workshop on emotional detoxification. And me and all my wisdom at the time, I laughed at the name. I was like, emotional detoxification. And the person that told me about it, you know how sometimes people tell you stuff and they're bullseye right on the money and it's spooky. He goes, you need to go. And the way he said it, I was like, I went, and what I saw, I fell in love at first sight, Joel. There's a few things that I've fallen in love with at first sight, and one of them was the language game. And he talked about a lot of the same stuff we do, which is words, how they influence us, identity, talking about story, and then he worked with somebody live. He said, does anyone have a story that you're hung up on? And this woman raised her hand, and it was a legit stinger breakup story. So the story was her and all her friends go to beach week, get a house. Her boyfriend and all his friends go to beach week and get a house. Her boyfriend hooks up with one of her friends in front of everybody one night, and then he dumps her. I know, right? And then he dumps her in front of everybody the next night. So insult to injury.
Oof.
Right. And 4 years later, she's still pissed. He takes her through this story, and at the end, she's angry and in tears. Justify. I can understand that. And he takes her through the story again, and he changes some words. And now she's sad, no tears. Third time through, there was a key adjustment in the middle of the story that went. It helped her go from taking the whole thing personally to putting that on him. His actions were about him instead of his actions being about her. So much so she had a cognitive shift. She goes, huh, remember those? Huh, that guy was actually pretty weird. It wasn't going to work out anyway. And I saw that dude, and I said, that's not my story, but that's my story. And from then on, I was just in the game since, as in the game from that time. There was a before in my life, and then there was an after in my life. And uh, uh, it wasn't pretty to start.
Yeah.
Here's a part of the story that I usually leave out. But that same workshop, he paired us up, and after he explained it, demoed it, he paired us up with people to work with. And I got paired up with this woman, and she's telling me about something. I forget what the details were. And I'm trying my best to navigate the story. He's like, okay, everybody switch. And I looked at her and I just said, I'm leaving. And I got up and walked out. There wasn't a chance in hell that I was going to share my stories with anyone. I was so tight and constricted and just pissed and angry. And I went to the internet cafe. I left that workshop, went straight to the internet cafe and downloaded this 85-page manual on how to do this work on your own. And I went back to my crappy little bungalow on the beach, beautiful beach. I love crappy little bungalows, and started to do this work on myself, as in going into the most stuck stories that I could find in the story of Mark, my story of me,
Right.
and externalizing them. So most people keep their stories, especially the ones that have a lot of weight, emotional weight, and negative emotional charge. They keep them inside. Okay, this is all stuff that you
Right.
know.
Right.
That's hard work. It's such hard work, because the story is infinite. It's seemingly infinite. Where does it start? Where does it stop? There's the worst part flashes in front of my eyes. I tighten up, I pucker up, and then I'm like, oh, I can't deal with this, and then either fight it or run from it. There's a lot of value, folks, in externalizing the story.
Yes.
What do I mean by that? Getting it from in here out here. And the best way that I know to do that, it's better than talking about it a majority of the time, a vast majority of time, a more effective and practical and easier to do in some senses is to write the thing down. Exactly. Magic wand. Joel's got his, I've got mine. Write the thing down. So the part when, and I gave this example on the Middle-Aged Man podcast last night. Let's say there was a divorce. Okay. You all went through it. Some of your listeners have come from divorced families, and a lot of times in divorce, the most poignant moment in that whole story is when the children are sat down and told that the parents are getting a divorce. And a lot of times that happens in the kitchen or the living room. And they remember that story like it happened yesterday. Those kind of specific events that every time you think about them, you get that. It can be challenging, because guess what? You're going to feel those emotions again. Pepper burns twice. It burns going in and it burns coming out.
That's right.
Eat a spicy Thai dish and then, tell me that's not true.
Yeah.
Same thing with our emotions and feelings. The fastest, easiest, simplest way to get yourself unstuck from things that have haunted you for God knows how long, because time does not apply to the emotional body, is to write the story down and write it out. Not write about it, not write about how you feel about it 30 years later. Title the specific memory and write out what happened conversationally with punctuation. And now the story, it's gone from seemingly infinite to finite. It's got a beginning, it's got an end, and you've got a couple of feet literal distance between your eyeballs and the paper. That's which right. is very different. A story head, you're participating in that thing. You're literally in it. And now it's outside of you. You can look at it and go, huh, those 3 paragraphs and 11 sentences that's part of how I've been terrorizing myself for God knows how long. These shapes and squiggles and symbols configured in this particular way. That's a little bit of an out there strange side conversation. And Joel, you've heard me go on rants how many times? I'll go on tangents. What's the most valuable avenue that we can converse on this subject with for your clients?
What's the most valuable?
Yeah, yeah. What's the best path? I can talk the rest of the way through the four-step story work. I can talk about spells. I can talk about supercharging affirmations. We can talk about soft talk. What you know this game.
Oh yeah.
He's learning how to do this.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, I mean, there are so many different avenues, and that's one of the things that I have found interesting. I mean, you guys, what Mark just touched on is so huge in terms of being able to get it out from in between your ears out onto paper. I've done this with Mark multiple times. And you're repeating the story in your head whether you like it or not. But as soon as you start writing it down, it starts coming to life. And there's a lot, the texture of it, the taste of it, the smell of it, everything comes back and it starts becoming real. And this is the unwinding of this narrative, because you've had this false narrative, or this narrative that has haunted you and has beat you down. And that's one of the questions that I always ask anybody who comes onto the show, and you're leading right into it, is what is the hell that you solve? And what you're talking about is unwinding these stories, which is truly, people are living in their own hell with these stories. And so
It's true.
what if you could say in a sentence or a couple sentences, what is the hell that you solve for people?
I give people a fire extinguisher to put out the raging forest fire in their head.
Yes.
Most people are walking around with a DEFCON level 1 war zone going on in their head.
Yes.
Just war. And there's a way to remediate that.
Mm-hmm.
A very simple way. And just like Joel said, is first things first, get the thing on paper, because it's different than talking about it. Because when most people talk about the things that have happened to them, just like they do when they're journaling, they'll talk about it from a 20-year ago, 30-year ago, maybe 2-year ago perspective, and they'll talk about how they feel about it. All right. You want the story out.
Mm-hmm.
You want the story out, and then you keep going. So there's what we're talking about right here is a way to take the charge out of a story. And I've used this 4-step story work process. Guess what? There's 4 steps to it, on everything from procrastination to war crimes and torture and all kinds of gnarly stuff in between. And it works because it works on the mechanics of storytelling. Our coaching system is, the why is so overdone. It's burnt to a crisp, because that leaves so much room for conjecture and opinion. What I want to do is to help people take themselves out of upregulated, stressed states in context to a specific story. So if any story that you think about, it tightens you up, guess where you're going to be breathing? You're going to be breathing in your chest. That means you're in amygdala hijack. Look that up. That's a term coined by Daniel Goleman. I believe it was 1996. And it refers to what happens when we go into stressed states. And amongst several things that happens when we go into stress responses about the thing that happened God knows how long ago, or the divorce that we're going through now, or every time we think about, our knee injury and the subsequent surgery that we're having next week, which is the story that we worked on with a gentleman on Tuesday Night Live. It's an Instagram show we do every Tuesday at 6. When we go into a stress response, people's breathing gets trapped in the chest. This is one of the most valuable parts of the conversation that we have when it comes to our own personal storytelling. As in, the story you're telling you about you and the world. And when someone's breath is in their chest, their ability to listen goes way down. They lose access to their creativity. They get fixated, tunnel vision. They literally lose peripheral vision. And then changing, I say this to people that coach, good luck changing your client's mind or helping them change their own mind while their breathing is trapped in their chest. Exactly.
Right.
You might be saying the most smart shit ever. And if their breath is trapped in their chest, you're going to get the socially nice smile and the nod.
Yes.
And nothing's happening.
Yes.
In order to make your clients receptive, or if you're not a coach, in order to help you change your own mind, let's get your breathing down in your abdomen, also known as parasympathetic nervous system response. And when someone's breathing descends back down into their abdomen, the shoulders drop. They have the ability. They have distance in their actual vision and in their imagination. They're more their problem solving capacities, faculties. There's the word. Goes way up.
That's right.
And where that starts is with getting that. And there are ways to skin a cat. This is how we skin cats. Get the story written down on paper. This pen might feel like it's 500 pounds. I understand that. And you know what? Yes, there is it with memories that have a high level of emotional sting. Yes, that is going to come up in this process. And you know what? Let's just get real honest about it. That's nothing compared to living with this stuff for 20, 30 years.
That's right.
That's the real horror movie.
That's right.
I'll take a little bit of acute sting right now for extra space and ease of being and confidence and all the good things that come with cleaning house with our stories over the next 30 years. You know, we're talking about wasted talent. We're talking about wasted talent. That's the stuff that I think that would have to be the scariest thing on my deathbed. Regrets. I think about deathbed regrets. I've also had a couple of friends who were hospice nurses. And I sat down and had some conversations with them.
Yeah.
What do people say when they're dying? When they've got a few days to live and they know it. What comes up? And she said, shit that they feel bad about that they've done and regrets. She said that's 95% of the dialogue. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, you know what? That's the scariest fucking thing I can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
Really, Joel, this is a legitimate question. When you contemplate that, what kind of feelings come up when you envision that, you run that simulation? How do you think that feels?
Oh,
because we're all going to die, folks. We're all going to die. You listening to this, you're going to die. I promise.
That's it.
And this is not the trial run.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Just the thought of that for me is to hold on to something for my entire life. The tension, I can feel the tension building in my chest. Just the thought of having something on my mind for that extended period of time. Too much.
It's spooky, dude.
It's spooky. It's spooky. And what's crazy to me is that it takes death, knocking at death's door, to finally pick up the pen or to say the story. Death's door. That means that they lived with it their entire lives. And the more that I do this story work, the more that I'm recognizing people who are in their 60s who are living off a story that happened when they were 12 years old. Yeah. And they've been carrying it for 50 years. For 50 years. And it has stifled their progress. It has kept them from living in their true self. And it has left them with self-doubt and regret that they're unable to get back until they write the story down.
Two things that come to mind, and that's the first time I've talked about. I think that's the first time I've talked about it. The hospice nurses and some part of us, and she said that people do it, and they're getting these stories up and off their chest, and they're semi-conscious. Okay, they're not doing it consciously. She said they're doing it in semi-conscious states, and they're reliving these things. And I sit there and I think about that, and I'm like, and she said this is a big time theme, so common. They expect it, and I'm like, why would that be the case? Why would that be the case? And the story that I'm going with, until otherwise, and just for now, the story I'm going with is that some smarter part of us knows I got to get this shit out of me.
Yes.
Because if I take this to the other realm, we're going to have some real problems. It's a natural get this out of my system response when people are dying.
That's right.
And to talk about, to tell give an example of what you just said. You're working with people that are 60 that they've been talking about something, carrying something, having something haunt them since they were 12. I remember this woman's face like it was yesterday. So I've been coaching 14 years. This is year 2. And this 65-ish year old woman comes in and sits down, and she wanted to work on her intimacy issues. And she was molested when she was 7 or 8. And she created a global story about men and a global story about sex. And we went into it deep. She cleaned it out, cleared house, put it through the process. And she came back for another session, and we were doing some other things, and we circled back to check in with that. And she had never had sex.
Wow.
She was a 65-year-old virgin. And the look on her face, folks, when it dawned on her that she wasted something so natural and beautiful and fundamental to her human experience. Because guess what? I mean, I'm just guessing. Sex at 65 is not like sex at 25.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, is that crazy town talk?
That's a pretty established guess. Yeah.
Okay. Like I've said, you've heard me say this. I'm a simple person, and I like putting things in simple terms. And the look on her face when that exact thing dawned on her, it got. There's a lot of reasons why I'm involved in this work, and part of them are personal, and the other part are just to, help people have more fun.
Yes.
Help people live more exciting lives, help people talk themselves into opportunity, become more adventurous, take better risks. Because I know nothing more risky than staying on the couch and playing small. That's a fucking huge risk. That's a terrifying risk.
Yes.
Because I'm risking going out with dying with a wow wow. It's a major risk. Folks, let's get real clear. You not going for what you want to do, following your heart, it's an overused statement.
Yes.
And that's risky.
I love it. I love it. And so, guys, if you're following right now, What we're talking about is we're talking about the power of your words and your story. And that if the story that you're creating is not a story that brings you to your better self, then that's a story that needs to be gone. There needs to be some major reconstruction there, and it needs to start with being put down on a piece of paper. Now, Mark, I want to bring this up to you because this is going to connect the dots for a lot of people who are new to this. Well, what are you talking about? Story work? And are we talking about therapy? Are we in what is this therapy? Tell us about, because this was a big one for me, abracadabra. What is abracadabra? Why is this so important to people?
Abracadabra, in my personal and professional opinion, Joel, it's the most well-recognized word on the planet.
That's right.
You can go anywhere, essentially anywhere. And I have. There was a period of time when I was traveling a lot internationally and doing workshops. Some with translators. I mean, I got around. And I would ask people, let's say, when I say abracadabra, what do you immediately think of? And everybody goes to magic.
That's right.
Now, once upon a time, I was living in Ecuador in 2013, and this gentleman at the table knew that I was into magic. Excuse me. Well, he was right there too. We'll talk about the definition of magic here in a second. He knew I was in the language game, and he said, "Hey, Mark, you know what abracadabra means?" I'm like, yeah, magic. And he goes, "No, abracadabra is Aramaic. Aramaic is the language the original Old Testament was written in. It's old school." And he said, abracadabra is Aramaic for with my word I create, or with my word I influence. The hair stood up on my arms. I put my fork down. I went over and sat next to him. I said, "Tell me everything you know." And he said, "Yeah, this is a very important. It was the cornerstone of a foundation for mystic schools of mysticism. They knew that if they got their language working for them, then they could do amazing things in their life. And they knew if their language was working against them, it was going to be a quadruple uphill battle. So much so that they would triangulate abracadabra and wear it around their neck. I don't know if y'all can see that.
Yeah.
To remind them of the power and the mechanism of the spoken word. Y'all can look this up, folks. And that put a very important piece of the puzzle together for me. And it's also given me the best, it's not arguably the best, it's the best conversation point for people, because everybody's already accustomed to the word abracadabra.
Yeah.
And when they learn about what it really means, it makes more sense to them that, oh, wait, my language, what I say to me about me is very powerful, and I am influencing myself, and I am creating things. Now, influencing what, Mark? Here's a good story that puts the whole thing together instantly. And then I'm going to circle back and I'm going to fill in the rest about the 4-step story work process, because we talked about step 1. We're going to talk about the other 3 and why. We'll talk about more about breath. So everybody leaves here with a tool.
Yes.
Calgary, 2014. Yeah, that's right. I get hired to come in and present for an insurance company for their sales team. And I also did sessions with them afterwards, one-on-one sessions. And I think it was the next day, I'm in a room with this young gentleman who's 23, 24, and he's struggling at work. And we're in the same room, 2 chairs facing each other, maybe 5-6 feet apart. And this is what he says, everybody, words. And this is what he does. He goes, Mark, I can't keep focusing on my past. I saw him. Of course, I saw him staring right at him. I go, you know, you just turned around and looked behind you, right? He goes, really? I said, yeah, really. What did you see? He had to stop and think about it, which brings up another point. Most people use their language so quickly, folks. It's somewhere between super hard and impossible for them to connect the dots between what they're thinking and saying and how it's influencing major aspects of their experience of themselves. And as in 4 major aspects of your experience of yourself. So he said those words, I can't keep focusing on my past. Now look at the words. Am I going to be able to focus on my future when I say those words? No. So what did he do? He turned around. It wasn't a micro movement. He didn't scratch his nose when he said it. He turned around and looked behind him and then looked back at me. That's 1. That's his physical body. Your language influences how you move your body. 2, his words influenced his imagination. I said, what did you see? He had to stop and think about it. He goes, I saw myself on the couch and all alone. 3, emotions and feelings. How do you think he was feeling, Joel? Do you think he was feeling pumped and excited and grateful for whatever? Nope. He was anxious, pissed, and a little bit scared. So that's 3. And then drum roll, back to the breath. Where do you think he was breathing? He was breathing in his chest. And look at what Joel just did. He goes, he pulled his shoulders up tight like that. On a side note, if anyone ever tells you that they have tight shoulders, they're actually telling you they have poor breathing mechanics. Breath trapped in the chest jacks the shoulders up, keeps them there. Jaw clenches. Your butthole's going to pucker up too. The whole thing just tightens up and tenses up, and a lot of people walk around like that. We have a number of yoga teachers that are certified coaches, and I ask all of them the same question. What is the average person's breathing mechanics looks like that walks in off the street and they go, they're all breathing in their chest. Yeah. Their breathing is terrible.
Yep.
And guess what? Here's my unofficial, it's unofficial, and my personal and professional opinion that 98% of people's breathing problems comes from story problems. As in they're telling themselves shitty stories over and over and over again, and they just keep themselves in that stressed sympathetic nervous system response state. So here it is again, recap. I promise you this is happening. Your words, for better and for worse, are influencing 4 of your the major components of your experience of yourself: your physical body, your imagination, your feelings and emotions, and how you breathe. And it's happening fast. And it goes both ways. Everybody listening to this show has talked themselves into a bad mood. Yeah, you have. You've done it more than once. And you know what? You've also talked yourself into a good mood.
Yep.
And here's another question. Did you use the same words? Did you use the same words to talk yourself into a bad mood that you used to talk yourself into a good mood? No, they were different words. That's one of the very simple ways that I interact with people. Like, oh, it doesn't matter what you say. Okay, it just matters how you say it.
Yes.
I'm like, or they're just words.
Yeah.
And I'll give them that analogy, and especially for the people that go, oh, it doesn't matter what you say, it just matters how you say it. I'm like, okay, perfect. So let's do this. Go to your employer, and in the most loving and caring way, tell them that you have zero professional respect for them, You've always thought that they were stupid, and they have horrible taste in clothing. And be really nice about it. Because it doesn't matter what you say, just how you say it.
That's right.
And then tell me how that goes. Or go to your partner and say, sweetheart, you're fucking ugly. And be really nice about it. Say it in a really nice way. Just watch what happens. It does matter, folks.
That's right.
Words matter. They totally matter. Let's recap the 4-step process, and I hope it's okay me dropping F-bombs on here.
Drop them. I just got to click on the link that said that there's going to be explicit language. That's all I got to do.
Okay, great. So we'll recap on the story work and then whatever else you want to talk about.
Yep.
So the 4-step story work process, folks. The hard part is pen to paper about a story that has haunted you forever. How long? Step 1, title a specific event and write it out. Conversational English with punctuation, just like it's going in a book. Okay. Step 2, say it out loud. Get it off your chest. Again, this is very different from what most people do with these stories, which is keep them inside. Okay. You've got the thing on paper. Boom. Step 1. 2, you just said it. 3, step 3, say it again at 70% of your normal rate of speech. Again, we're about the mechanics of storytelling. I'm far more interested in how am I being so hard on myself than why am I being so hard on myself. The why is cooked. It's burnt. It's so open for opinion and conjecture. The how, on the other hand, that's a mechanical issue. And you can break it down into its components and make some adjustments. Because if you know how you're doing something wrong, you know how you can then deduce how to do it better.
That's right.
And all of you all can have a better conversation with yourself about yourself. First is the know to do it, then the know how. Step 1, title it, write it out. Step 2, say it out loud. Step 3, say it out loud at 70% speed. As when anyone slows down their rate of speech, this is public speaking 101, their breathing begins to descend down into their chest, into their abdomen. And as a mechanical rule of thumb, when we slow down and the breathing goes down, the feels come up. You want to. Those feels have got to come up and out. Otherwise, they're just going to sit in there and cook. And then the 4th step, so let's say there's 2 paragraphs to the story, 4 sentences in each paragraph. That equals 8 sentences. That equals 8 periods. You want to take your pen and draw a big fat line on each period. And so when you read it, that 4th step, you read at 70% speed and you get to that big fat line, you go... So here's an example. My parents got a divorce when I was 8. They took me and my sister into the kitchen. My mother was crying. My dad was emotionally cold. Go figure. My dad said they're getting a divorce. And that he's leaving. And that we're staying with Mom. And we'll see him every other weekend. My little sister started bawling. And I blame myself because I should have been able to keep the family together, even though I was 8. The feels that you felt when you were 8 years old are going to come up and out in the process of getting it on paper, reading it slow, and reading it with breath in between each sentence. And that is heaven. It's nirvana compared to that thing staying inside of you and getting in the way of you having relationships and showing up in every way that you want to in your life. Because that's what those stories do, folks. They don't just sit there and do nothing. No, they influence many a thing. Part of that is how you think and feel about yourself, and part of that is your unconscious response to interaction with people. Okay. That's a lot of me talking, Joel. Take everything that we just got on the table, synthesize it, and then what's next, buddy? You're driving.
Yes. So what, Mark, first and foremost, fire. You guys are learning from the master here. He's been doing it for 14 years? Correct. 14 years. He has a lot of practice in this. And even just implementing this within the last couple of months with my clients, I've had responses such as, I've had therapists for half of my life and they've never touched this. I have held on to this for my entire life and now I feel changed. These are the words of going through this process, you guys. It isn't what Mark said, rocket science. It's not rocket science. This isn't magic in the sense of you don't know what's going on. It's magic in the sense that you do know what's going on. And the magic is what happens when you put pen to paper and you allow it to come out and you slow down your breath and you slow down the way you speak. And before you know it, it comes out. I've done this with people. They want to rush through it initially. Mm-hmm. They want to talk through it and then we're going to and then when you have them slow it down, there's a big shift that happens. And then you have them breathe and there's even a bigger shift. It starts bubbling up and it starts coming out. Because if we can stay all up tight in our chest, then we can keep it pressed down. But as soon as we start breathing, it starts opening up. And that is where the real magic starts happening. And so, you guys, if this is stuff that you are interested in knowing more, follow on Instagram Enlifted Coaches. Mark goes live every Tuesday night. This is how I got into the position that I am in right now in taking Mark's course. I'm right now going through the Enlifted Coaches course, level 1, and learning from Mark how to use my language for me and not against me. This is personal first and foremost, and then it is to be able to help people that are around me, because the massive change that I have seen with utilizing this in my coaching is mind-boggling. And again, not rocket science. It's just not. You guys can start changing your life today. Tune in on a Tuesday night with Mark, and I guarantee just with that, you will start feeling a change in your life. So, Mark, speaking a little bit about what you do, tell anybody who's listening, how do they follow you? What if they wanted to dive in a little bit more about learning? What's the avenues they can take?
Very cool. There's the main one is Instagram Tuesday Night Lives. What is that? It's a class. It's a class where we coach people live. We being me, and then I also say we because it's a show. We have a couple of team meetings about it every week. There's a waiting list to get on it. There's a curriculum for each show. There's a show structure, and it's also class. So every interaction whether it's a podcast, a conversation, a one-on-one session, a Tuesday night live, a certification. It's all class. I am a teacher to the core. 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mark England 2057. That's my IG handle. And on a relevant side note, that Instagram account is a free school. 85% of what I post is 85% of what I post is language. It's all about language. And then the other 15-20% is fun education, fun entertainment stuff. Yeah. That's come check out one of them, and they're also recorded. Just like any other post on my channel or that account. It's just sitting there waiting for you to watch. The one we did last week, well, depending on, well, this is a live. One we did this past Tuesday was on illness and injury. What to do with those stories. And if you like good TEDx talks, look me up on YouTube. Mark England, TEDx. We give a very good TEDx talk on. And it was a very good talk because we practice. And if you ever want to have me back on and talk about public speaking skills, dude, all you got to do is ask. I love talking about that shit.
Yes.
And then a plug for Joel. If you're watching this and you need some help with something, you're stuck somewhere. You know you're stuck. You're tired of being stuck. Book in with some sessions for him. Okay? He is a very fast learner and he knows what to do. He can help you.
No doubt. No doubt. Mark, it was a pleasure being able to have you on the show, be able to talk about the stuff that I'm now very passionate about. And the 14 years of passion that you have brought to the language game and what you are doing for people all over the world is truly incredible. And being able to create more coaches who can then go influence others and help them change their lives is really a very honorable, noble, and incredible thing that you're doing. I'm so grateful to have you as my coach and to have you as a guest on the show. Would look forward. I would love to do a public speaking podcast because I love doing public speaking. So it's kind of selfish for me. I would want to do it.
Dude, let's do it mid-May.
Let's do it. I'm gonna write it down right now. There it is, you guys. Yeah, mid-May. Anybody who wants to get in on better public speaking, and if you haven't seen Mark's TEDx talk, go see it. You'll see. I mean, this guy has done over 500 public presentations. The sword is sharp with this man. All right. Well, next time I'll see you is on Tuesday nights, and see you in class next week.
Right on, man. The saga continues. Thank you for having me on, Joel. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this and considering what we're talking about. Yeah, and good job being a student of this game, man. It's
thanks, brother.
Yeah, you're gonna do big things with this.
Thanks. All right, you guys. Next week we have another guest on the show. It's Mateo, who is the CEO of 8 Sleep. We're going to talk about sleep and the technology that they're doing over at 8 Sleep. Until next time, focus on those words. Make sure to breathe. Mark, I'll see you soon.
See you soon, buddy.